We're testing and comparing discs from the Trilogy brands in as many plastics as we can find. Why? Because the plastic is in the details. Hey everyone, it's Greg from Six Sided Discs, and I still have a cold, but the show must go on. And I guess before we get started, we need to talk about what Trilogy is, or rather, was. The Trilogy brands consist of Dynamic Discs from Kansas, Latitude 64 from Sweden, and Westside Discs from Finland. Through a strategic partnership that began in late 2012, the Trilogy brands joined forces, with Latitude 64 manufacturing the discs in Sweden and Dynamic Discs handling distribution in the largest market, the United States. They found early success sponsoring players, including 2010 world champion Eric McCabe, while Latitude 64 was sponsoring Ricky Wysocki for both of his world championship victories. However, I say this is what Trilogy was because some things have changed. Now, Dynamic, Latitude 64, and Westside are under a new disc golf umbrella company called House of Discs, which is owned by Vendis Capital, an investment group based in Skellefteå, Sweden. House of Discs also includes Spin-Off Games, the creators of popular mobile game Disc Golf Valley, as well as Swedish manufacturers Castoplast, and most recently Discmania, which joined House of Discs in 2023. However, despite the changes in ownership, the production and distribution of the discs remains largely unchanged, which means that Trilogy discs, whether branded as Dynamic, Latitude, or Westside, use the same plastics for their discs. They just have different names for those plastic blends from one brand to another. For example, Dynamic Discs Premium Opaque Blend is called Fusion, which is called Gold for Latitude 64, and Tournament Plastic for Westside discs. While their translucent blend is called Lucid for Dynamic, it is Opto for Latitude 64 and VIP for Westside. And if you don't want to try and keep track of all that for yourself, I don't blame you, because by the time you go through their other blends of lightweight, flexible, mid-grade, base, soft base, and other specialty blends and effects, the names and combinations of terms are, frankly, even hard for me to keep track of, and it's literally my job. But if you are interested in learning more, I have included a link in the video description to Latitude 64's website, where it breaks down the durability, grip, and stiffness of every single plastic that they make, along with a description of what makes that blend unique, and a quick count on that page adds up to 16 different blends, and that doesn't even look to include anything with the words glimmer, or orbit, or whew. Anyways, back to our task at hand today. We are testing 2 different drivers, 3 mid-ranges, 1 approach disc, and 1 putter in a bunch of different plastics to see how differently they fly. And hopefully, by the time we're done, we'll also have a better understanding of all these different plastics, differences in stability between them, but also differences in feel, because obviously every player is looking for something a little bit different. Let's get started with one of our mid-ranges, the EMAC Truth. The EMAC Truth is a slightly modified version of the Truth, and while the Truth is a straight mid-range rated at 5.5, -1.1, the EMAC Truth is more overstable, rated at 5.502. And we have it in 3 plastics today, beginning with their standard translucent premium blend, Lucid, along with a variant of that plastic, the Lucid Ice Glimmer, which is supposed to be more overstable and a little stiffer. We also have it in Fusion Orbit, which is a variation on their standard premium opaque blend, Fusion. Team Six Sided Discs Caleb Thomas will be throwing the discs for us today. Make sure you check out his Instagram and YouTube channel. The links are in the video description. Caleb has a natural hyzer release, so we'll see both how stable these discs are, but also how torque resistant they are, beginning with the Fusion Orbit EMAC Truth. In Fusion Orbit, it flips up to flat, and then holds and holds before getting almost another late flip to finally finish straight. And if we give that another watch and listen, Caleb was pretty impressed.
Oh, I love that. How straight it is. I need that disc from you.
But how does it compare to Lucid or Lucid Ice Glimmer? Well, side by side, you can see the Lucid plastic resists flipping up, instead holding that angle for a smooth, overstable flight. while the Lucid Ice Glimmer is very similar to Lucid. So the EMAC Truth follows a similar trend that we see from a lot of brands, where an opaque premium blend is not quite as overstable as a translucent premium blend. Next up, let's take a look at our only putter, the Judge. We have the Judge in two blends today, Classic, which is their oldest and most popular putting plastic, as well as Fusion Burst, which is simply a visual effect added to their premium Fusion blend. There's also another slight difference in that the Classic is super flat, while the Fusion Burst has a little bit of a dome. And surely with all these differences, these discs are bound to fly pretty much exactly the same, which honestly is pretty cool. Because if you're shopping for a throwing putter, we would suggest the Premium Fusion Burst if you want to maintain this stability for long, or the Classic if you want to beat it in quickly. And this is as good a time as any to mention that you could buy these exact discs that we tested in today's video and all our videos on our website, sixsideddiscs.com. Take 10% off of these ones because they're lightly used. Next, let's move on to Trilogy's most popular approach disc, the Westside Harp. Rated at 4303, the Harp has been a go-to approach disc for many Trilogy-sponsored players, including two-time world champion Ricky Wysocki. And we have the Westside Harp in four plastics today: BT Hard, which is a stiff bass blend, BT Medium, which is basically the same as Classic, a lot more grip, this beautiful VIP Ice Glimmer, which according to Trilogy should be a little more overstable, and finally perhaps this even better looking VIP Ice Orbit. This visual effect is probably one of my favorites right now in disc golf. But we're not necessarily judging these discs just based on looks. Let's see how they fly. And if any one of them wasn't going to be super overstable, it was probably going to be the BT Medium. But as you can see, it has plenty of overstability, not much glide, exactly what you want from an approach disc. Next to that, the BT Hard Harp looks pretty similar, briefly holding before fading aggressively. The VIP X Glimmer has an even more extreme fade, and thanks to that slick premium plastic, it gets a big skip as well. And finally, we have VIP Ice Orbit, which is also super overstable and gets a big skip as well. So the good news is anyone shopping for a harp can pick any one of these because they're all plenty overstable. And the only real decision you have to make about the plastic is both how it feels in your hand and how long you want it to hold that stability, because BT Hard and BT Medium are going to beat in much faster than the premium blends. Let's move on to another mid-range with the Latitude 64 Fuse. We have the Fuse in two different plastics today. One that we've seen before, gold plastic, which is Latitude's version of Fusion from Dynamic, or Tournament from Westside. But we have our second Fuse in a totally new plastic, Frost. Frost can be compared to Dynamic's Fluid Plastic or Westside's Elasto Blend. It is a super flexible rubbery plastic that will resist beating in and maintain its stability for much longer. So I guess the question is, what if any stability does it have to begin with? Well, up first, let's start with the gold Fuse. Caleb said he threw this on quite a bit of hyzer and with about 60% power because, in our experience, the Fuse can definitely get some turn. But surprisingly, this gold plastic really held that angle, but did get some nice glide and smoothly moved to the left. But let's compare that to the Frost Fuse on the same power and angle. And the Frost Fuse flips to flat, starts to turn, and holds that turn for a completely different shot shape. I love learning little things like this, where one plastic blend behaves completely differently, and it helps me, you, and anyone else interested in a Fuse to know what blend they should buy. So the Fuse showed us the biggest difference between two plastic blends so far. Can another Trilogy mid-range do the same? No matter how you spell it, it's time for the Compass. Rated at 5501, we have the premium plastic showdown we've been waiting for, with gold plastic versus opto plastic. No effects, no shimmer, no glimmer, no orbit, no ice, just straight up good old-fashioned premium blends. And remember that opto is the same as Lucid or VIP from Dynamic at Westside, while gold is the same as fusion from Dynamic or tournament from Westside. Hope you're all keeping that straight in your noggins. And it's at this point that we should also point out that there will 100% be some difference from one mold to another as to how much its stability is affected by the plastic. So let's take a look at these compasses side by side. As you can see, there is very little to choose between the gold and opto compass. Both start on hyzer, hold straight even while on a slight hyzer angle, and get a gentle fade at the end. It may just be that the neutral stability of the compass isn't as easily impacted by the stability of the plastic, but essentially there was nothing to choose between these two. That's enough of mid-ranges though. What the people want to see is a full flight from some drivers. And I think it's bazooka time, because we're going to check out the Ballista Pro. The Tour Series disc of Estonian superstar Albert Bazooka Tom, the Ballista Pro is a super fast 14-speed driver, rated with 4 glide, 0 turn, and 3 fade. And we've even got a little bit of a pop top. The Ballista Pro is the big brother of a pretty popular, already overstable distance driver, the Ballista. And we have 3 different plastics that couldn't be more different, starting with their standard premium opaque plastic, gold. We then have the Tour Series for the Bazooka himself, which is in Opto X. Opto X plastic is, according to Latitude 64, a stiffer, more overstable premium plastic. And finally, for the first time today, we have Bio Gold. Bio Gold plastic is a recycled plastic, which uses discs that don't meet Latitude 64's quality standards. Bio Gold uses opto or gold plastic melted down to then be mixed in to create Bio Gold. Latitude says that Bio Gold has more grip and less stiffness than opto, but less durability as well. To the flights though, and let's see how differently they fly. We begin with the Gold Ballista Pro, which, released on hyzer, flips up just a bit before getting a smooth but pretty substantial fade. Not bad. How does it compare though to what we might expect to be more overstable, the Tour Series Opto X? Well, also on hyzer but a bit lower, the Opto X Tour Series flips flat and holds straight for quite a while before that low speed fade really shows its teeth. On all the throws we had with the Opto X and Gold, there was very little to choose between them. But what about Bio Gold? Well, on the same hyzer angle and similar power, it flies a little different. And due to some weird issue with the app that I use to trace flights, which has been extremely frustrating, I couldn't actually trace this other flight, but take a look at it anyways, and I'll zoom in for you. Look at the amount of turn that this Bio Gold Ballista Pro gets. This thing is crazy. It's moving something like 100 feet further to the right than the basket that we're aiming for. So Bio Gold, clearly not as overstable as the other plastics, but this could still be useful information. If you're a lower arm speed that wants some turn from a Ballista Pro, there you go. Or if you're a faster arm speed that wants to see one get a roller, you can make that happen. But with all that being said, let's move on to our last comparison, the Dynamic Discs Escape. Rated at 9.5, -1.2, the Escape is a workhorse fairway driver, designed for moderate but accurate distance, and most importantly for us, the Escape will finally give us the opportunity to get our hands on the brand new, top-of-the-line plastic that Trilogy's making, Supreme. Supreme is the Dynamic Discs version of Grand Plastic, which is the premium blend in Latitude 64's Royal line, made exceedingly popular by Kristen Tatar's Grace, as well as the 13-speed Rive, 2 of the Royal line's best-selling molds. Supreme and Grand Plastic feature Latitude 64's new Nex Edge and Nex Feel technology, which they say guarantees no flashing and a super smooth rim edge, as well as superior grip and feel in your hand. We also have 2 other plastics for the Escape, Lucid Glimmer, and their standard Lucid plastic, although this one does have a few little metal flakes mixed in. Let's get these Escapes in the air and see how they fly. The Lucid Escape on a slight hyzer flips up beautifully, holding flat and pushing straight before the slightest of fades and skips at the end. Meanwhile, the Lucid Glimmer Escape flips to flat only briefly before holding a slight fade, and was cruising to around 400 feet when it smacked into a tree. But just how supreme is the Supreme plastic? Well, if you don't give it too much power, the Supreme plastic can get a subtle drift to the right for big distance. This disc ended up sneaking through the trees to end up pin high on this 425-foot downhill hole. But if you power up on it, oh boy. Wow. The Supreme Escape is definitely a lot more understable than a Lucid Glimmer, or even just plain Lucid. So in many of our videos like this, we like to try and draw like a larger conclusion about how the different plastics from a company actually affect the stability of discs and try and give some information or advice based on that. But here, that's kind of tricky. Trilogy makes so many plastics and so many discs that it's almost impossible to say for sure that one blend will always be more overstable or understable than another. I'm curious though, for those of you that throw a lot of Trilogy plastic, what have been your experiences? Leave a comment down below and tell us about how they fly for you. Remember, you can find all of the discs we threw today on our website at the link in the video description. We also carry over 20 brands with pictures of every disc and free shipping on orders over $50 at sixsideddiscs.com. Oh, and lastly, comment below what brand's plastics we should explore next. Remember, the plastic is in the details. For Six Sided Discs, I'm Greg. We'll see you in the next one. If you're a lower arm speed that wants some turn from a
I fell. Oh! That's on me. Slipped on that one. All right.
Need a bleep on that one, Greg. Through a strategic partnership that began in late 2012. Through a strategic, I can't say it. Oh, and lastly, comment below what discs, we did it. We did it. If you like this content and want to see more, please consider liking the video, subscribing to our channel, or supporting us on Patreon. Your support makes this content possible.